Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is the Factivist Report for Monday, the 22nd of May. You know, when I do this on Monday, I get all messed up.
I know.
So here is your day late, but never a dollar short Factivist Report. So I'm glad I'm doing this because I just happened to pick up my phone and look at Facebook, and someone's suggesting that perhaps we should be able to compromise with these fascists. And I was saying to myself, are you really fucking saying that? Because that's not ever going to happen. Okay. Fascism is not something to be accommodated. It is something to be fought. And by the way, compromising with these people is how we got here. So this is a perfect entry to where I'm starting this. We're going to do some screen share tonight. We're going to start right here with a great article in The Atlantic about the man who broke politics.
Great, a dinosaur hanging out with more dinosaurs.
Right, yeah. The man who broke politics. So, you know, it's amazing because I saw an article this week about how the Republican Party has finally achieved the nasty that Newt Gingrich was advocating for in the 90s. And we are now there. So I need to get to a spot here. You know, he's the man who taught them, you know, the way that they should refer to the Democrats, you know, unpatriotic, you know, just, you know, things that he was saying, liars, traitors, you know, anti-flag, pathetic, radical, corrupt, and sick. Those were the words he suggested as a key mechanism of control.
Loony, Daffy Dukakis.
Yeah, the loony
and
left.
By the way,
they call it partisan blood sport.
Right.
That's basically what it is.
One of those quotes, he used that he's one of the few things that is keeping people between us and Auschwitz.
Yeah, people like me are what stand between us and Auschwitz, what Gingrich once told a reporter.
So he's basically saying the Democrats are Nazis.
Right. It's the other way around, actually.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, and again, this is one of the reasons why I subscribe to The Atlantic, because they do stuff like this. This is very in-depth. I'm not going to read stuff to you tonight. This is a big report tonight, and I don't want to keep everybody on until, you know, the break of dawn here.
Look at how many tabs she is.
Yeah, don't even talk to me. I said it wasn't going to happen, but I lied. So let's move on here, if this freaking browser will allow me to. So let's fast forward, because the premise of this article is if there was anybody that enabled Donald Trump or paved the way for him, it was Newt Gingrich. And this is Donald Trump fast forwarded talking about 2024. And in his launch speech, he is proposing deploying the military domestically, purging the federal workforce, and building futuristic cities from scratch. That's his vision. He is, to those who have been wronged, he is their retribution. So basically, it's the politics of getting back at everybody that done him wrong. Okay? That's what you've got facing you should Donald Trump win the presidency. You know, this can't be allowed to happen. You know, let's forget, let's set aside right now, you know, the notion that he's going to be arrested. Okay. He probably is. I've recently saw a video. He's probably going to be charged this summer. Okay. And there is actually a very sane attorney that worked for him who no longer works for him, who wasn't one of those fringe, crazy, wacko attorneys that he has now, because that's all he can get. Who believes he will serve prison time. But be aware, of this. There is no law in the Constitution or anywhere that will prevent him from running, even if he is convicted. Do we understand that in the United States? There's nothing. That is something we need to change. That is something that needs to change.
And by the way, real quick,
Yep.
When it comes to Donald Trump, or by the way, any fascist GOP candidate, like DeSantis is another one. Those presidential candidates, it's all about them. You have Kerry Lake saying that if Donald Trump becomes president again, he doesn't really need a vice president. He could do it all by himself, which means they want to just consolidate all the power into one person.
Right.
Him.
The executive branch.
Yes. The executive branch would be the only branch. He would be king, basically.
Right. Now, I want to remind you, the worst thing that ever happened under Donald Trump was January 6, 2021. Let nobody forget this. All right? This is ProPublica once again, and they have these videos. These were videos taken by the perpetrators themselves and posted on a far-right website called Parler that ProPublica then downloaded and broke them into near the Capitol, at the Capitol, inside the Capitol. You can see all of these visions yourself. This was not, patriots who were, tourists that got a little out of control. All right. So this will be.
If they were tourists, you wouldn't have people getting arrested and convicted.
Right.
Of
now,
sedition.
1,000 now, by the way. And by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to impeach the U.S. prosecutor for D.C. for prosecuting these people, if you can believe it. So we're going to talk throughout this whole video about all of the things that have been brought to you by the right wing and the GOP. So let's start here. Besides this, by the way. Citizens United. Now, Citizens United, people often refer to that as corporate personhood. That is not corporate personhood. This was a decision handed down by the Supreme Court, which Ruth Bader Ginsburg said was the worst decision ever made, by the way, that said that not allowing corporations to donate vast amounts of money is an infringement of the First Amendment right. This is not corporate personhood. I will explain corporate personhood in a minute. So basically, this opened up the door for wealthy donors and corporations to start giving unlimited amounts of money to election campaigns. This was a 5-4 decision. And as you might guess, it was along conservative versus liberal lines. The case was heard in 2009. The decision was handed down in 2010. Then we get into some dark money, which are 501c4 corporations or nonprofits, which are also allowed to donate money. These are people who can influence the outcome of elections without the source being disclosed. This is a whole separate ballgame here.
And by the way, until very recently, how many people really knew who Harlan Crow was?
Yeah, really.
I mean, people say, "Oh, we know everything now. It's the internet and blah blah blah." Nobody really knew who Harlan Crow was.
No. And nobody knew that Harlan Crow not only gave money to what's his name there? I can never remember his name.
Clarence Thomas.
No. Yeah, Clarence Thomas. But there are Republicans in office right now that have reaped about $450,000 worth of money from him. So, moving right along, this is how this works. We basically had a secretive billionaire who handed his fortune over to the Federalist Society to help reshape the court system, including the Supreme Court. And Donald Trump and the Republicans used this money to stack the courts, and he stacked the courts from the lowest to as high as he could go. And this is the way this money influences politics. And it not only influences politics in terms of who gets elected, but it influences the institutions that people have to live within in this country. And in many cases, these jurists are lifetime appointments.
Deb, I don't want to go into the weeds, but I do want to ask you that, or I want to bring this out because I know some people are just going to say, hey, let's just overturn Citizens United. Explain why that isn't as simple as just overturning Citizens United at this point.
The only people who can overturn Citizens United is the Supreme Court itself. Right. They would have to revisit the case, say a mistake was made, and overturn it, or someone would have to challenge it again and bring a new case to the Supreme Court. I dare say this is not the Supreme Court that's going to overturn Citizens United.
Right.
You know, it is really, the split between liberal and conservative judges is just that vast right now. You'd have to fix the Supreme Court before that would ever happen. The only other way this could be changed is to add a constitutional amendment. And the requirements to add that constitutional amendment would be that you'd need a very large Democratic Party majority to even have that happen. This is what we keep saying to you. You need, I believe it's a 2/3 majority of both the House and the Senate. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that right? I think it is.
That's correct. That's right.
Yeah. And we just, we don't even own the House right now. You can forget it. There are a bunch of MAGA Republicans running the House of Representatives. And that's why we're in the mess that we're in right now with a number of things, including the debt ceiling. They're pulling the strings. Another example, this guy, Peter Thiel, founder of PayPal, Silicon Valley darling. This guy was buying fascist candidates during the midterms with, $10 million a whack to guys like J.D. Vance and I don't know, the guy that lost there. Thankfully, he lost in Arizona. He was focused on Arizona, Blake Masters.
Blake Masters, yep.
Right. Who lost to Mark Kelly, Democrat. But you know what? Guess what? In spite of that, he's not done. His strategy of pushing the GOP further to the right, he's just going on to plan B, whatever that may be. We don't know what that is yet. He wants to reshape the Republican Party. And he's going to use his wealth to do that. Now, corporate personhood. This is what corporate personhood is. Hobby Lobby, which is a right-wing Christian corporation, took this one to the Supreme Court. This is where the Supreme Court granted corporations the right to refuse service to people who did not meet their, I don't know how to say,
quote unquote, moral standards.
Moral standards, right, exactly. A question of conscience. If, they were offensive to their consciousness, if they were a gay couple getting married, a bakery could say, I'm not going to bake your cake, or you can't have your wedding at our venue. This is what corporate personhood is all about. This was a separate Supreme Court case. This had nothing to do with Citizens United. People often refer to Citizens United as corporate personhood. That's not what that was about. That was just a decision that had violated First Amendment rights of the corporation. This is what corporate personhood is, which, would allow, I don't know, in Florida, DeSantis just passed a law that would allow doctors to not treat people. It's crazy. What happened to the Hippocratic Oath of do no harm? That's gone out the window. Now, the other thing that the right wing has brought is the anti-science movement. So contrary to popular opinion, this did not start with COVID. This started in California in 2015 when people started getting exemptions from vaccines. So this is a great article in Scientific American. This is where it started. We had started having measles outbreak and things like that in this part of the country. But what happened was when COVID hit, and by the way, the guy that wrote this he's a vaccine scientist and a parent of an adult daughter with autism and intellectual disabilities, who said in no way were her problems caused by vaccines. He actually wrote a scientific article about it. But what happened was when COVID hit, it became weaponized, the anti-science movement. And it not only was weaponized at the beginning with COVID denial, or saying it was just like the flu, it was no big deal. But when the vaccines came along, it got even worse. Okay, because then you had people talking smack about vaccines, and scaring people about getting vaccinated. So this was all started. The right wing grabbed hold of this whole thing and turned it on its ear. Okay, and this all started right here. I'm going to put this. I put this in because this is the journalist who exposed the perpetrator in the beginning, the man who began this whole thing, Andrew Wakefield, who basically fraudulently presented data that stated that vaccines cause autism. He's the grandfather of vaccine paranoia. This site, Brian Deer's site, will take you through this whole thing.
And this was huge because Andrew Wakefield's paper, and it wasn't really even a research paper, it was published in a well-respected publication,
The Lancet.
And people took it extremely seriously to the point where vaccine numbers started to drop in the UK.
Right.
And then you had the anti-vax movement alongside right-wing people just take off with it.
Right.
And then when COVID hit, then they created a business out of this.
That's right.
Almost a cottage industry with supplements and that kind of thing.
Andrew Wakefield was stripped of his medical license. He's British. He was in the UK. He was exposed in the UK. He was stripped of his medical license. It could only be in America that he could come here and become a fucking hero. And that's exactly what happened. He became the face of the COVID anti-vax movement at the beginning. Okay. He has since kind of disappeared.
Right. He's disgraced in the UK, by the way.
He is disgraced in the UK. He got out of the UK because he had no choice but to get out of the UK. But he came here and found a way to make a lot of money with his crap. And only in America could Americans fall for this stuff. Americans are great for conspiracy theories, I have to say. It's amazing. He's not the only one. Judy Mikovits, another one who fraudulently, produced research. She actually put the bug in one of her research things. She's the one that made the pandemic video, which basically was a bunch of people saying their kids were sick from vaccines with absolutely no scientific data. The thing took off. I mean, people were like touting this video, this two-part video series like it was, a visit to Mecca, and it was the most
Right.
ridiculous thing ever. There was absolutely no scientific evidence in any of this, and that's
Yeah.
we have become an anti-science society. That's a very scary thing.
You know, I know Deb and I had talked about doing a video about documentaries and things like that. When you have these quote unquote documentarians talking about BLM, Candace Owen has her own documentary.
Right.
You have, all of these guys creating quote unquote documentaries about what is a woman, all this crap. Um, and I remember looking at the pandemic video, and it's spinning a yarn as to how this person is a truth teller, and how everybody is targeting her without showing any of the truth.
Right.
Showing no data. If you take a look at Brian Deere's uh, information and his videos, or some of the stuff that's taped, he will definitely take you on a journey, but you will see his research methodology alongside of it.
Right.
And it's not about him. It's about the families involved in this. It's about who's getting harmed by this false narrative,
Right.
and how he found out that the narrative was false in the first place.
When this guy started this, he basically was just reviewing supposedly children who were autistic at the hospital where he worked. Okay? He was reviewing, it was a case review study. The fact is, those people the kids that he was including in that study weren't even at his hospital. Some of those people were flown in from the United States. Okay? He fudged everything. There wasn't anything that was legitimate. One guy said he thought his daughter wasn't even in the study, and he found out that patient number 13 was actually her. He did some egregious things, this guy. And, he could only come here and be a hero. It was incredible. So here's the article. This is from the first doctor I showed you that was talking about the anti-science thing. This is his story. Vaccines did not cause Rachel's autism. So he wrote this for Johns Hopkins. So we have here, this is a great piece you guys should look at. I'm not going to take you through it. It's kind of detailed, but these are the people who have cashed in. We are going to talk about this little.
Oh, right.
We want to talk about the Bollingers, okay? Because, a lot of this bullshit with anti-science is not just about vaccines. This guy is a former bodybuilder with a degree in accounting from some obscure little school. His wife was I don't know what she was, but
look at those smiles. Look at those smiles. How could you not trust those smiles?
They sell supplements, by the way, for a living. And if you go on their website, which I don't have here, you can also buy some religious books from them if you want.
Oh, good.
Whatever you need to pray your way out of, whatever disease you might have.
I understand that some people will fall for these things. It is, it's designed to hook people. But if you see those two smiling faces with that graphic behind them and those words underneath, to me, the red flags would be going off all over the place. But people buy this stuff.
Yeah, look at, this is where it started, okay? It started with, the truth about cancer, and basically talking about how all you have to do is eat this right and do this right. You won't need chemotherapy. More than 450,000 people signed up to view the series the year it debuted. $5 million in sales of these videos. And these people are not doctors, okay? They're not doctors.
And this type of stuff has been going on forever. Remember the grapefruit diet,
Yeah,
the Atkins diet, all that stuff.
yeah.
All you have to do is eat grapefruit.
Right. Well, I told you I got caught up. I don't even want to go into detail on this, but I was watching. I was waiting for some video to start, and it was on one of my browsers where I don't have, Google, whatever it is. I don't have YouTube Premium. I don't know what browser I was on. It was some obscure. I got like 9 browsers. I can't help it. But I started watching this freaking infomercial about who. I mean, I'm watching this woman who's left her doctor's job somewhere to make a supplement that will make you poop easier. And I'm saying, and she's talking about.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's called Emma, whatever it is. It's named after her. It's about berberine. I got them written down here. DGL, star anise, quercetin, and resveratrol, and it will change your life. I mean, this shit is never ending. And who's behind this? This is something people need to understand. A lot of their funding comes from the Tea Party Patriots.
Right.
Okay.
There you go.
The Tea Party Patriot Foundation, America's Frontline Doctors, they've never been on the front line of anything. Okay?
Oh my God. Ivermectin paste, which is apple flavored.
Right. There's Stella Emanuel right there. She's a doctor who actually Donald Trump touted as he was vilifying Anthony Fauci. He was, promoting her because she cured 350 people with ivermectin, but she couldn't produce any, any data. She couldn't produce any medical records.
Didn't she also tout the use of voodoo or something?
Yeah. Well, no, actually. So here's the story. She's got a little doctor's operation in the same strip mall as her ministries.
Okay.
Casts out the evil spirits. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up except that you can make it up. No.
Well, she does. She is
making this shit up.
Right.
I don't want to join your newsletter. I've seen enough of this stuff. So this is where the Bollinger started.
Right.
Started with the truth about cancer. This is them on Rumble where they have 740 followers on Rumble. They are also on Facebook, by the way. They do have a page on Facebook. This is how they started. The truth about cancer. Look at them. I mean, seriously.
Look at those smiles. How could you not trust those smiles? I mean, how could you? But good Lord.
They've been written up by the Associated Press. Inside One Network cashing in on vaccine disinformation. They moved from the truth about cancer to the truth about vaccines. 7 episodes. You can buy it on Amazon. Same bullshit, only it applies to vaccines, okay?
By the way, they're not researchers. They have no medical background whatsoever. Nope. And also, I would imagine that their viewership, their target audience are older people. When they're talking about cancer, when they're talking about diseases, these are people who are infirmed,
right?
Who are in pain,
right?
They're taking advantage of those people,
right? Well, that you can look up here, the truth about cancer up here. That's there's also the real Anthony Fauci. Let's vilify
Fauci. Yep.
And now we get into this guy. This is from McGill University. He was an environmental lawyer, and then he became an ambulance chaser. That's basically what I call him. But he shifted his focus from environmental law to pharmaceutical companies. He did this, very deliberately. And his website, Children's Health Network, I don't have it here, but I will put it in. He keeps saying on his stuff to look at the science. There is absolutely no science on his website. It's all hearsay. Everything is hearsay. And he has, is making millions right now. He's making millions even as he runs. In fact, in his first interview, I believe it was with NBC, as a presidential candidate, they had to edit out his vaccine disinformation, because that's the first thing he started on. Okay. And according to him, there's worse things than dying, like losing your freedom and having to get a vaccine. I'd like to point this out to you, however. When he had a party during COVID, he required that the people coming to the party were vaccinated, which leads me to believe this shyster is vaccinated, in spite of what he says. He is also listed here. This is a great piece. You can download the report. The disinformation dozen. He's not the only one, but he is, because of his last name and because he's a Kennedy, his name carries a lot of weight. But there's Dr. Merkler, who will sell you any number of supplements like wormwood that will cure COVID. You know, there's 12 leading online anti-vaxxers that are responsible for the vast majority, at least 2/3 of the misinformation out there.
That would probably be Andrew Wakefield, Harish Buttar.
Yeah.
There's a few others. What I want to say in terms of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., please, if anyone doesn't know that much about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and you guys are listening to us, just look at his record. Look at what he's about. He is about misinformation about vaccines. He's about supporting insurrectionists and
election denial.
He's denying that any of the primaries are going to be legitimate. He's already complaining about it.
He's been in the race for a week, and he's already saying that they're going to fix the primary so that Biden wins. You know, what more do people need to understand? That he may be running under the Democratic Party? And I keep hearing people say, well, they should give him a chance. The Democratic Party doesn't owe him anything. He is not a Democrat, okay? They don't owe him a platform. They don't. They don't owe this guy a platform. He goes against every single thing that the Democratic Party stands for. He's even misusing JFK's legacy by saying that JFK would have supported vaccine freedom. You know what? JFK's own children came out and said, that's not true. My father was a believer in science and in vaccinations. And by the way, the entire Kennedy family is supporting Joe Biden. Nobody is supporting RFK Jr. in his family.
Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you have the numbers on how much he has raised so far. Personally, I think this is probably a money grift for him.
Oh, yeah.
To raise money, because you don't really have to disclose until you're formally in the race.
Right.
So I think he's just doing the exploratory committee thing. So he might just be, raking in some money.
Kennedy 2024 thing. He's got a website. He's out there.
Right. But I don't, you know what I'm saying though, that I don't know if he has to formally declare how much money he has raised yet.
I don't think he's done any of that.
Right.
He doesn't have to do that yet. And then I am putting this in at the end of this portion. This is an excellent. I know it's a New York Times magazine, but I had this before I canceled. This is a really good interview with a guy who actually does know what he's doing, and who served with distinction across a number of administrations, both Republican and Democrat. And, he received a medal from George W. Bush. He was never a problem for the United States until he went to work for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump smeared his image. And, that is totally unfair. He's 81 years old. His family was getting death threats. It's unacceptable. It really is. And were mistakes made? He acknowledges it. He acknowledges his mistakes. He acknowledges the missteps the CDC made along the way, because nobody ever saw a virus like this before. It did not operate like other viruses. And he acknowledges that. But you learn as you go along. Science is science. And when you're in the middle of a pandemic, you don't have the benefit of sitting back and researching before it hits. So This is a great article. I would suggest that you take the time to read it. Now, what else is Donald Trump claiming to have been responsible for? He's taking credit for all of the abortion bans in the country. And he's got a plan when he's in the office. Everybody's going to love his plan for abortion, which is going to be a national abortion ban. I promise you. And, he's not wrong when he takes credit. He should take credit for what he did, because in 2016, as a candidate, he said he was going to stack the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. And in 4 years, he managed to appoint 3 radical right judges to do just that. And they did exactly that. And while I was telling everybody it was going to happen, they were telling me it was a distraction. The real problem was the Democrats. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So what has happened since the overturn of Roe v. Wade? Everything has just gotten worse for people in red states. For people in blue states, not so much. Because in blue states like Massachusetts, nothing has changed. Roe v. Wade is the way it is here. But we can get out of here. Stress. You live in Florida, you do have stress. Florida, 6-week abortion ban. He went from 15 to 6. Most people don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks.
Right. By the way, all of this has never been about freedom.
Right.
But the GOP always touts freedom, and then they turn around and tell you what you cannot do. And by the way, this has never been about states' rights either. This has been about pushing forward this anti-choice agenda.
Controlling women is what this is.
Controlling women.
Other states. Oklahoma becomes the first state to entirely ban abortion. Now, this was challenged in the Supreme Court, in the Oklahoma Supreme Court. And they declared that, it was unconstitutional because people who needed an abortion for emergency should be able to get that. However, the Supreme Court upheld the 1910 abortion ban. The abortion ban that was passed in 1910. Okay. So you can get one, but it's narrowly defined medical emergencies, or you get $100,000 fine, or you're punishable. It's punishable with up to 10 years in prison.
What else? Understand?
Yep.
This isn't just about abortion either.
Right.
This is going from abortion to gay marriage to medical care for transgender youth and for adults. So this is expanding very, very quickly. Contraception, sodomy laws.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to contraception yet, but they are going to go after They're actually going after contraception. They will. You will see. There are already, tongues wagging out there that people who are married should not be able to use contraception. Speaking of anti-trans, you can take a little trip through this. 549 bills, anti-trans, in 49 states. 73 have passed, 374 are in process, and 102 have failed. But this attack on the transgender community is unprecedented. This is huge. I honestly, I've been gay all my life. I honestly can't remember a time when there were this many bills against gay people. I mean, this is insane.
So really of the 73, is there a way to track them and see where they are? I would assume they're in mostly. Okay. There we go.
Yep. You can track them in there. It's just, what right does the government have to tell people what they can and cannot do with their body, and tell parents what they can and cannot do with their children? It's mind-boggling. They don't have that right, except if you live in red states. Somehow, the fear is that you could take this to the Supreme Court, but you know what they're going to do with it. You just can't trust the Supreme Court. They have become the enforcement arm for the GOP. That's really what they are.
And I know this isn't about that, but as we're going to talk about this in the future, the GOP expands what you can't do based on just a whim, what they decide is not safe. TikTok has been banned in Montana.
Right.
Okay. So
yep.
You have a lot of people on the left and a lot of people talking about certain things that I guess Montana doesn't like to hear about, or the politicians in Montana don't want you to hear about. So they banned TikTok. Now I don't know if that's being challenged in the courts or whatever, but again, what business is it of them to tell you what you can and cannot look at?
Right. Right. That's what you have parents for. If you're worried about the kids looking at that stuff, that's the parents' job.
Right. And by the way, this is not about misinformation that could potentially be harmful in terms of public health either. Right. We're not talking about vaccine disinformation. Don't go there either.
Right. So Texas legislature, you can't unless you're if you're under 18, even with your parental consent, you cannot be treated now in Texas. Kentucky, the worst anti-trans bill in the nation. Yeah, go ahead. I'll accept that. Go away. Okay. I believe in the state of Kentucky, doctors are now being forced to detransition anyone who has been in process. In other words, return them to the gender they were at birth.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
Please, I would imagine, how dangerous is that?
Very. It's very dangerous. I can tell you, if I had to do that with my child, I would have to get out of that state immediately. All right. This is the worst state in the union. And this is where Andy Beshear, the Democrat, is the governor. Unfortunately, the veto was overridden. Any veto that he, gets overridden because he's working uphill there. He's a great governor, by the way. There are groups that are behind the anti-trans movement. Here's another tracker right here. This is by state. You can take a look at this.
Yep. I guarantee you Texas is bad. There you go. Missouri.
Oklahoma is really bad. Oklahoma has banned transitioning. Not only, I believe a couple of states have said you can't start now till you're 25. That's a disaster. But I believe Oklahoma has banned it for underage and adults.
Right. Yeah, it looks like Oklahoma, Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri is really bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty much like right in that Midwest right there. You have a couple of states like, the southern states like Florida, South Carolina, Virginia, they're starting. Arizona, Utah. So, and by the way, North Dakota, yeah. I noticed they had 17. North Dakota doesn't have any record of transgenders in the state.
Yeah, they're just getting ready in case they do.
Right. So
it's called a preemptive strike, Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about the drag show thing too, because again, this is entertainment. It actually, what it is an attack on transgender people that's, poorly hidden. Let's put it that way. But, they're worried about corporations' free speech being, violated if they can't give millions of dollars to candidates. But You know something? I believe that drag shows, I think this article is absolutely right, is an attack on the First Amendment. You know, again, what business of the governments is people who attend drag shows or take their kids to drag shows? By the way, drag show story hour, people who dress up like the characters in the book. Can somebody help me with this?
They're not dancing around on a stripper pole.
Right.
They're not doing anything
In
inappropriate.
character.
And by the way, if these GOP, and I always go to this, if these GOP right wing people are so concerned about the children, ban child marriage, have a
Right.
mandatory national minimum age of 18 to get married.
Hell,
Because when a child is allowed to marry another, generally a man, when a girl is allowed to marry a man, she can't get divorced until she's a certain age.
right.
So if this man's abusing her, she's,
By
yeah.
the way, Tennessee just lowered the marriage age to 13. They're worried about drag shows.
Right. Because they're a threat to the children.
Right. But they're, legalizing pedophilia essentially because most young girls marry older men. They're not marrying 14-year-old boys. Okay.
Right. And by the way, I don't have the numbers, but some of these men are preachers and priests.
Right.
Just so you know.
Right. And again, right here, if you read this article, it's really good. The breadth of these bills are staggering and many go beyond their purported goals of protecting children from obscenity. That's not what this is about. None of this is what this is about.
And please explain to me, because again, this expands. Please explain to me what the purpose is in terms of safety for the American public by strengthening sodomy laws, making it illegal for basically people to be gay.
Right.
Please explain.
This is a good thing right here too. Participation in drag queen story hours is voluntary. Libraries decide whether to program these events and families choose whether to attend or not. Okay? That's free speech. That's exercising your free speech rights, your First Amendment rights as a human being. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, another charming thing that's happened in America is white supremacy, bigotry, not just against transgender people, but people of color. The Unite the Right rally, where Donald Trump told the Proud Boys to stand by and stand down, all of that nonsense. It isn't nonsense. It's actually quite scary. I mean, this is Frontline. This is really excellent. This is a good 54-minute documentary, and there's all kinds of accompanying stuff you can look at. Right? We have normalized white supremacy in America. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the other day, when Jamal Bowman, the representative, was standing outside, basically on the steps of the Capitol, I believe he was, yelling that George Santos should be resigning from office. She was threatened by him. She felt threatened by him. People need to watch him. Meanwhile, down in Louisiana, a white representative literally picked up and manhandled a person attending a press conference from Our Revolution for asking a question of Lauren Boebert. He asked her, does she care about the people of Colorado? And this representative literally just grabbed this kid and forced him off the venue and into the street physically. But she's threatened by Jamal Bowman, who did absolutely nothing.
And by the way, if you remember when the election was going on, when she was running against Marcus Flowers, she stormed into his office.
Right.
Into Marcus Flowers' office and tried to intimidate him, which
Right.
was, comical in some ways. But you're saying that you were intimidated by Jamal Bowman, but you tried, strong arm tactics against your candidate. Your opponent. Give me a
Well,
break.
threatened by him because he raised his voice. Her freaking voice never stops.
Right.
She's always
Right.
in the shrill zone.
Right.
Millions of stories have been written and talked about by this, how Trump acknowledges systematic and institutional racism, but how his rhetoric, legitimizes it. What else is going on in America? Anti-Semitism, the highest level recorded since the 1970s. That's unacceptable. And again, Donald Trump having dinner with Nick Fuentes and, Ye, whatever his name is,
Right.
whoever he was, the former rapper known as I'm, off my meds or whatever his name is. Let's not go there because that's just an excuse for him being a white supremacist, actually. I don't even understand it, but you know what? He's definitely anti-Semitic, that's for sure. I mean, just the stuff that comes out of his mouth. But, the notion that he had dinner with them and he didn't really know what they were, that's a lie. That's an outright lie. He knows who Nick Fuentes is. And he had them at his place in Mar-a-Lago. They were in his, what he calls his home. Nick Fuentes is a Holocaust denier, okay? And in case you're not familiar with him, you might want to, familiarize yourself with who this guy is. He used to be here at Boston University, by the way. And when he attended the Unite the Right rally, and he came back to Boston, the students literally drove him out at Boston University. And that's when he turned around and said that the diversity in Boston University was poison. He's a white supremacist, and he's an anti-Semite. He says that Jewish people don't belong here because they're not Christians. There's no place for them here in America.
Now, I want to make it very clear too. Donald Trump and a lot of the rhetoric from Donald Trump, make America great again, America's strong, yet Mexico's full of rapists, all the stuff about women, grabbing women by the crotch and all of that. What does it sound like? All of that lends to white men are the superior beings on the planet. And what does that sound like? Sounds like Nazi Germany to me.
All of it.
All of it.
If you're familiar with anything that went on in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, targeting groups of people, that's exactly what's going on here. It's going on here every day. There is absolutely a parallel between what's going on with the GOP and those allied to the GOP. Donald Trump said the other day, if he's reelected, he will bring Michael Flynn back into his administration. Michael Flynn is a traitor. And he's not only a traitor, but he's a white supremacist and a Christian nationalist. All of this is very much in parallel with fascism and Nazism. I mean, there's no other way to make this sound nice.
And by the way, Donald Trump is not the only fascist running for the presidency in the GOP. And I know Tim Scott, Dave, he's black. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. The entirety of, the House of Representatives, the GOP, every single GOP member is a seditionist in there. We went from 147 to 170 at the midterms. We should never have lost the House of Representatives. Never. Never. We increased, their ranks increased at the midterms.
Right.
So in closing, I'm closing with the gun issue.
Okay.
So the whole gun issue came up when someone challenged the gun laws about keeping a handgun in the home for safety, self-defense.
That was DC, I think. That was a DC police officer.
The Heller case.
Yep.
So Antonin Scalia actually wrote after that decision, like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. It is not a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever and for whatever purpose. So even though it is my contention, and it is also, by the way, I will show you this as we go further. It's my contention that the Second Amendment was never about individuals owning guns. Okay, it wasn't. It refers to a well-regulated militia. And what they did was they were switching from a state's government to a federal government. And they wanted the states to have some kind of protection so that the federal government, understand when these were written, please, by the way, also, so that the federal
We're talking muskets, by the way.
Right, they had muskets, and they had maybe one handgun, okay, maybe. But they were afraid of federal government overreach into the states and with the military, by the way. So that's why the Second Amendment was written. It was not written so Kyle Rittenhouse could get an AR-15 and go protect a freaking car lot during a riot, okay? That's not why the Second Amendment was written. So there were some, even when this was handed down, there were some restrictions, as you can see in Scalia's commentary. But, you know, the Supreme Court has also continued to overturn states' decisions. For example, Kathy Hochul's, all of the gun regulations she put in when she was elected governor, the Supreme Court overturned them. So they play fast and loose, this particular Supreme Court here.
And once again, gun violence typically affects poorer neighborhoods, African American neighborhoods, Latino neighborhoods, people of color, and poorer neighborhoods, not rich white people.
Right.
What do they care if these people kill each other's?
Mass shootings, because of the violent rhetoric that comes out of the mouths of Donald Trump and his minions. We've had shootings at churches, synagogues, gay bars, 56 people killed at the Pulse nightclub in Florida. By the way, where he just made it an unlicensed open carry state, Ron DeSantis, as if they didn't have enough shootings there already.
The Gretchen Whitmer situation.
Right.
Adam Kinzinger's, the threats against Adam Kinzinger, by the way, also.
Right. By the way, I urge you to read this. The Second Amendment explained does not and never has guaranteed a constitutional right for individual Americans to own guns. This is a really excellent explanation. I've posted everywhere. So I urge you to read that. Now, we have eroded the decision on guns because the NRA is excellent at what they do. They really are. They give legislators a rating every year. Who's good with guns? Who's not good with guns? You know, who supports gun rights and who doesn't support gun rights? They flood money into candidates. They target candidates for removal from office. They actually participate in the voting process by promoting candidates who are good and removing, advocate for the voting out of candidates who aren't good.
I understand that at one point, people were saying, "Oh, the NRA is dead. The NRA doesn't have any power anymore." That's not true.
That's not true.
That's actually a slogan to use to get people to give more money to the NRA. The NRA has so much legal power or so much lobbying power. It's not even funny at this point.
By the way, this here, the Brennan Center for Justice. I urge you to read this.
It's a very good article.
It's really
Brennan
good.
Center is really good.
Yep, Brennan Center is an excellent resource. Now, we did actually have a federal assault weapons ban, which was signed into law by Bill Clinton. I believe it may have come up during George H.W. Bush's administration.
I think it did.
Yeah, I think it did. I think he was in favor of it, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was signed into law when Clinton took office, which would have been what, 1993, right?
It was 1992, but if you remember, 1992 was right around Columbine too.
Right. So, but Clinton would have taken office in January of 93.
Yep.
So I believe he signed that in, and this ban stood until 2004, when his son, W, allowed it to expire.
Right. George H.W. Bush's son.
Right.
W.
The most popular gun in America is a gun that nobody really needs. It's the AR-15. There are versions now. It's, it can be made by anybody. It used to be. It's basically the civilian version of the M16 military rifle. That's what it is.
Right.
And it's the most popular gun in America, believing there are between 8 to 11 million on the streets in America right now. When Joe Biden suggested a new assault weapons ban, you can't make this shit up. They were actually wearing AR-15 pins in Congress, the Republicans.
George Santos, and yeah.
And by the way, Lauren Boebert and George Santos have co-sponsored a bill to make the AR-15 the national gun of the United States. That bill has not gone anywhere yet, but it's been filed.
And that's why you need a national gun,
It's absolutely sick. We have more killings in the United States in 2023 than we have days right now. And we are the only country in the goddamn world with this kind of a problem. There is no other country where this happens. None. Not in Russia, not anywhere. Okay? It is an entirely American epidemic. So you can take a trip through here if you want to take a look. Gun Violence Archive, it starts out with 2023, but it's got all the years and all the charts and all the graphs.
And they updated
daily,
religiously. Yep.
Right. Let me just say that the last shooting in Texas took some decisive action. I mean, they were touting this as decisive action. Okay. They raised the legal age that you can buy an assault weapon from 18 to 21. That was their big step for, they wanted to shut up the critics. So that's what they did. By the way, the man who used the AR-15 in that last shooting was 33 years old.
Right. And by the way, I believe that law has already been challenged by the NRA.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. So.
Yep. That's what I got. I mean, there are a host of other things that the right wing and the GOP has brought us. I mean, I could be here all night. I really could.
Anti-information attacks on the education system, attacks on the press. A lot of it is about attacks on information, but that she didn't go through. But attacks on smaller groups of people.
Right.
African Americans, women, attacks on women. Why do women need to be told what to do with their bodies?
Right. Well, let's talk about the education system. Okay.
Yep.
Not allowing slavery to be taught, the true history of the United States, that's fascism. I mean, that's fascism. That's they don't even talk about indigenous people here. We don't even mention, the only time we ever mention Native Americans is to call them savages. in our history books. Okay. We don't talk about the fact that, we slaughtered some of them, and then we gave them smallpox blankets. We brought disease over here and wiped them out. We took their children from them and put them in boarding school so they could have their culture taken away and they could be Americanized. In Illinois, I give credit to Governor Pritzker and the legislature for requiring Native American studies now in classrooms. People need to know our history. That's how you move forward and learn what to do and what not to do.
I'm seeing videos now on social media, teachers and security guards in schools showing boxes and boxes of books that are being banned. Diary of Anne Frank, the history of the African American, military battalions, whether in the Civil War, World War One, World War Two. What they served. Why shouldn't they be, Roberto Clemente?
Yeah.
The biography of Roberto Clemente,
Rosa Parks.
ML Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, it's outrageous. It really is. I mean, somebody put up a list of books that were banned in Florida. They're banning Judy Blume. It's crazy. It's fascism. It is. What's next? We're going to burn them.
Right.
And he says, oh, that's not really happening. DeSantis and Judd Legum had an article out there that says it absolutely is happening. It absolutely is. We have.
And by the way, the book by Judy Blume that they're probably going after the most is "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret," because she talks about her having her first period.
Right.
It's something that happens.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, you think girls going through this aren't going to know?
Well, what's going to, but that's not even the point. The point is, where are they going to learn it? Because they're basically not allowing it to be taught in school anymore. They're changing all the health classes around so that you can't learn that stuff. We don't want to talk about that stuff. We don't want to talk about puberty. We don't want to talk about any of that.
We don't want to talk about how to protect yourselves from abusers.
Right.
Because you would have to bring it up.
Talk about contraception, even though you can't stop children and kids from doing what they're doing.
Right.
You can make them safer. It's amazing. It really is. I mean, it's scary. This country is scary right now. I can't emphasize enough. Please don't talk to me about the fact that we have to come to some kind of compromise with this. This is bullshit. We do not need to come to some kind of compromise here. All of this that you've seen tonight is totally fucking unacceptable. And we got here by allowing them to have too much leeway to begin with. It is time now to put the clamps down. Okay, this is unacceptable in the United States of America. To have just a little fascism won't hurt us. You know what? That's bullshit, because they don't stop with just a little fascism. That's not where that stops, because if that was what it was, it would have stopped in 1993. It didn't. Okay? It didn't.
Look at Texas and look at Oklahoma. Look at Arizona. Look at Florida.
He's got an empire down there. Nobody can touch him. He stacked his court. The Supreme Court's all behind him. His legislature essentially rubber stamps everything.
And for those in Pennsylvania, Deb, I talk just for a moment. Talk about that group organizing in Pennsylvania. That scared the hell out of me. That religious group.
Oh, yeah. So apparently, Michael Flynn and Roger Stone are taking a dominionist group. It's the, in fact, this past weekend, Eric Trump and Donald Trump were at their meeting. I forget what state it was in. It wasn't in Pennsylvania, but they're headed to Pennsylvania now. They managed to take the anti-Semites off the stage to make it look better, but they're still there. They're headed down to Pennsylvania with the group, so they haven't gone away.
Could have been like Ohio or Indiana or something like that, or was it farther away? Do you
I don't
know?
know, but hold on. I'm gonna see if I can find it over here. I
Is
don't
it
want.
in that article? Because I could probably find it.
It was an article on by. It was an article about how Eric Trump's bullshit. His posts, hold on. Don't go away.
Oh, I'm right here. I'm actually looking myself. Whereas we have been given legal power from heaven.
Right, 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 right. That's it. You got it.
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Trying to see. All right. Yeah, they're coming to Pennsylvania. Where are they coming from? Or where are they? The, N- the NAR, which is non-denominational, resembles the Pentecostal charismatic movement from which it emerged, and its leaders teach that believers possess supernatural gifts such as speaking in tongues, prophecy, faith healing, and the ability to cast out demons.
right,
So we're talking we're talking Michael Flynn and Roger Stone. They're supporting those.
right. Yeah. Well, yeah. They're not just supporting it. They're,
They're yeah,
yeah. I mean, you know,
they're endorsing it. They're along with them.
right. And let me just say this. Both of those men are criminals. Okay, who
Right.
again have been enabled by the GOP. When Michael Flynn pled guilty to lying to the FBI not once but twice, Bill Barr threw his case out. And when Roger Stone went to jail for criminal actions, Donald Trump pardoned him. That's what fascism is. And yet, Donald Trump is ready to bring Michael Flynn back into an administration. People, this isn't a joke. This isn't a drill. This isn't funny. And it's not somebody that we should be compromising with. I don't care who you are. You know what? If you are on my venue, you need to get off because I'm having none of that. Fascism isn't something you accept. It's not something you have a little bit of. It's not something you compromise on. It is something you fight. And that's the way it has to be. If you're not up to the task, I'm sorry, then you will, have to step aside. But people need to stand up to this stuff. This cannot be allowed. Cannot
Look,
be allowed.
we're gonna be talking about, in the near future. I don't know about next week, but we're gonna talk for moving the needle back towards sanity, towards away from these GOP candidates. We have Tim Scott, who is running for president, officially declared. He's running for president of the United States in 2024. And we have Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, who is in serious trouble and may be indicted.
Right.
It's more than likely he will be. So we have two senators that we have a good shot at getting one of those seats in South Carolina. Let's do it. Let's do it. Even if we have to move Clyburn from the House.
Yeah, we have to do something.
Get it.
Yeah, we got to do something.
You can't do it too much, or take some. Think about it. If you are a Democrat in South Carolina, for a moment, just think about it. You have, I believe it's 15 state senators who are Democrat. What's the difference of having 15 and having 14? You still have a hardcore supermajority in the Republican Party. So if you have a high profile Democratic state senator, run him.
Right.
If he's that popular.
Right. Again, don't lose sight of the fact that don't be pie-eyed either and think, oh, the Senate. We have to win the House back. Take a look at where we are without having the House under Democratic Party control. Take a look at where the debt ceiling bullshit is right now.
Right.
Take a look at the fact that We can't reform the Supreme Court with the GOP in the House in control. We can't. We just tried to replace Dianne Feinstein in the Senate, and they invoked the filibuster because they don't want to give us that one seat that gives them and gives us an advantage. People need to understand this. This is not a drill, okay?
By the way, that has to do with the Judiciary Committee, by the way.
Exactly. Right. They wanted to temporarily replace her while she recovered from shingles. And they pulled the filibuster. You know, this is not a drill. I mean, take a look at what kind of legislation is coming out of the GOP House. The parental rights bill, the same bill they filed in Florida, which is essentially an anti-trans bill. I mean, it's not going to survive the Senate. We know that. But the fact of the matter is, you don't win the House back and you let them take the Senate, you will see. If you think it's bad now, you just wait. I'm serious. I'm telling you, the Democrats need to show up at the polls in record numbers, bigger than what they did in 2018. They need to show up and they need to get these people out of office.
You want some of this oppressive legislation overturned? You want the overturning of Roe? Basically, you want Roe reinstated or codified?
That's the only avenue.
It's never going to happen.
And don't let people tell you that, well, we'll have it in blue states. That's not good enough. What about all of the people left hanging in the red states? That's not having your rights. That's not women having their rights back.
You still have it in the balance, and you still have the possibility of the GOP codifying the banning of abortion nationwide.
If the GOP wins the House and the Senate, there will be a national abortion ban that can't be overridden in the states. You need to understand that. I can't make it any clearer than that. Everything that they have done is indicating that that's what they're going to do. Okay? And you will not be able to challenge that in this court system because it's a right-wing court system right now. You need to understand that too.
And you will go from right to right to right to right to right. You will ban, the right wing will ban abortion. They'll go after contraception. They'll go after sex before marriage. They'll go after gay and transgenders.
Gay marriage will be overturned. You wait and see.
By the way, gay sex will be made illegal if they have their way. Right. They will try to make being gay illegal.
This will be a rich white man's country. That's where we're going to be. Make no bones about it. They don't care more about poor Republicans either. They don't give a damn about poor Republicans. They don't.
No history. This will be just nationalist history. We'll turn into China. We'll turn into, when it comes to history and when it comes to the press. Yep. The press will be suppressed. Yep. Science will be suppressed.
Right.
Education will be suppressed. Real, true education will be suppressed. This is where this is going.
It is. I don't know what more you need to figure that out. You can't figure that out for yourselves? Then we're telling you. Okay. That's it. Because I'm getting a
headache.
Yeah, I got a headache now. I need to go take some Advil.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, gang. This will be up. I don't know. I'm going to try for tonight. More than likely, it'll be tomorrow, but we're going to give it a shot.